Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Don't miss the annual Outdoor Power Sale at Ace, our biggest outdoor power sale of the season. Save big on mowers, blowers, trimmers, chainsaws, and more from the best brands like Craftsman and Toro, all under one roof. And as always, the help is free. Hurry into your local Ace now for huge savings during our biggest outdoor power sale of the year. Offers valid on select products through April 17th at participating stores. Includes instant savings offers for Ace Rewards members. See store for details.
Sports professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, the inside story of the trillion-dollar sports business, law, marketing, endorsements, deal-making perspectives for you, the fan, and you, the New England sports fan, as well. It is a huge week, not only because of the beginning of the baseball season, but the Masters. Last week of the NHL season, a couple more weeks to go with the NBA. Patriots just around the corner, thinking about who they're going to draft and how they're going to outthink their opponents. Boston Marathon coming up. Tom Grill, the CEO of the Boston Athletic Association, will give us some interesting perspective on all of this as he interviewed for what it takes to get ready for this major event, which is not only an economic event, but a tremendous Boston strong cultural event. But first, let's talk about the issues that have impacted us all this last week in different sports. Before we even do that, if you want to see the full list of 15, log on to csnne.com and take a look at the list. And if you want to subscribe to our iTunes feed, look for us also on Stitcher, Google Play, Audio Boom, and otherwise. And here are some of the issues this week. Football, we're certainly busy. Take a look at the biggest issue, obviously, is the one about the Oakland Raiders. Well, let's call them the Vegas Raiders. Let's call them something in the middle. Market stability, stadium built for the 2020 season. Roger Goodell says that there are issues afoot to keep team in the Bay Area, but the dollars certainly weren't there. A landslide 31-1 vote. Steve Ross, the only guy voting against it. Winding up costing probably less than the $200 million, ending up at about $1.7 billion. Another $200 million public subsidy from Nevada and capital improvements. $750 million raised from a bed tax. That's what you get, by the way, when you have a tourist tax funded by tourism in an infrastructure area. And again, as we said last week, not only the facility for the Raiders, but also UNLV, Super Bowls, Final Fours, conventions, religious revivals. And the city goes from a radioactive town without any major league sports to 2 NASCAR races, the Golden Knights this fall and the Raiders in a couple of years. So what do they do in the meantime? Well, obviously they play in Oakland for a couple of years and they get ready for that facility. Although is it going to be a couple of years? Not really sure. According to everybody else, they may be taking a look at some of the other situations around San Antonio and maybe St. Louis and maybe Toronto and maybe London, maybe a whole host of other cities as well. The bottom line is, though, that there's at least a year in Oakland and certainly lame duck status, but the NFL much more stable and much more secure than it's been in a long time. Shift to Atlanta. They've got a great $1.5 billion stadium ready to go, but as of beginning of March, they've got roof issues. The authority says that the Falcons may be receiving inquiries about whether the roof is going to work. They've got to get it done before the Atlanta United match on July 30th, followed by 2 more United matches in August and 2 Chick-fil-A kickoff college football games in early September. The roof for this stadium continues to be a showcase of modern technology, but the industry holds its breath as the technical folks attempt to solve the problems. Let's go into the division, Patriot fans, and take a look at what's happening with the Buffalo Bills. They're trying to get things right. They've got a consultant to work with their coaches and players to improve the team's public image. Think rather than public image, they ought to improve winning. Then the public image happens. But they also recognize that New Era Field is a solid but outdated stadium. The team's currently set to run through 2023, and no immediate plans exist for a new stadium, but Bills owner Terry and Kim Pagula acknowledge the team will most likely need a new stadium by the end of the lease. The marketing of the Bills in the Western New York, Toronto region, it really has been tricky. The intensity unquestioned, but the team's mediocrity and lack of playoffs diluted some of the spirit. New stadium issues are inevitable, not right now. You know what they need to do right now? Get past the Patriots. That may be an impossible equation. Let's look at Detroit. The Lions made it clear to the NFL they'd host the Super Bowl in the near future. They certainly would want it. But the franchise also settles for the NFL draft. According to Detroit News, despite a clear intent on attracting the Super Bowl, it remains unlikely Ford Field will host the big game anytime soon. Multiple state-of-the-art facilities opening these days. Minneapolis 2018 Super Bowl, Atlanta 2019, LA 2021. Lions President Ron Wood is not discouraged by this, though. He says the NFL draft would be a great fit for the city, centrally located market, easy for fans to get to. Our airport isn't anything but great, and he thinks the Fox Theater would be a great location. Well, yeah, but it's another good example of the long-term mobility of the draft location, interesting many NFL teams that might not otherwise secure a Super Bowl in the short term. But let's remember, the draft is one of those things that people can use either outdoors, as they're doing in Philly, or maybe indoors in Detroit, as they did in Chicago. And obviously, we've been saying it every week. Why not a draft at Patriot Place or downtown Boston? Certainly a thought. Final NFL issue is in St. Louis this week. I don't know if you guys realize it, but the Rams are not there. But now St. Louis is looking to be all Chiefs all the time, hoping to win some support of the rest of the Missouri fan base. The Bears and Cardinals made quick moves to televise their games in St. Louis when the Rams left, but the Chiefs fared the best. Preseason games rated very well, says Mark Donovan, the team's president. And the Kansas City-St. Louis region, known as one of the largest market areas in the country, and the Chiefs clearly attempting to take advantage of it. Let's shift to baseball. And obviously, baseball opening week for everybody. The crack of the bat at Fenway Park, and obviously the Cubs defending their championship after a seemingly 1,000-year drought. But everybody's into the whole idea of free agency now and the whole idea of building facilities. And one of the only processes that needs to be finished in baseball is in Oakland. A's managing partner John Fisher says they need to seize the moment. We've just talked about the Raiders moving to Vegas. And now everybody in Oakland realizes they're running out of patience. They may be running out of teams. Remember, the Warriors are going to a downtown stadium or arena in San Francisco. And new President Dave Kaval willing to spend some money to keep his team in Oakland. But history told us that once a team departs, the remaining team gets its political calls returned quicker than ever before. And surely the A's will attempt to take advantage of this momentum and ongoing opportunity. Here's a twist, a team that's happy with its existing stadium, Colorado Rockies. According to KUSA, the Stadium District and the Rockies reached a 30-year lease agreement for Coors Field, worth about $200 million. Only $75 million of that sum actually used to rent Coors itself. The club will now pay $2.5 million for the next 30 years to rent the ballpark. The other $125 million of the deal paid to the district to lease the West Lot parking area for 99 years. The front-loaded deal, district receives about $7.5 million each year for at least 5 years, and about $5 million a year for 15 years. Most facilities built 15 to 20 years ago are now in the major renovation phase, ladies and gentlemen. In almost all cases, except maybe for Phoenix, the public-private partnership worked well enough to seamlessly amend the lease to include fan amenities and other technological innovations into the foreseeable future. I think we all understand how lucky Red Sox fans are to go to a landlocked small stadium like Fenway Park, but have the Red Sox put together a dynamic public-private partnership for the near and long-term future. Let's shift to NHL. One more week in the regular season, and get this, the NHL moving to China. Well, not so quickly, not moving, but the Kings and Canucks will play 2 preseason games against each other in late September, one at Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai and the other one in Beijing. The ORG Packaging Company, with partnerships with the Kings, Bruins, and Capitals, will serve as presenting sponsor for the games. The announcement also serves as the NHL's push into accelerating the development of hockey in China. Bringing NHL action to China will help increase popularity of the game ahead of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, and the NHL never, ever sleeps from its global perspective. even if there's only a small percentage of hockey converts in China, it's still a massive number. Let's finally go to golf. We need to go to golf. Everybody wants to go to golf. It's that time of year again, the tradition like any other, but not just golf, technology, the cyber capital of the South. 2 years ago, the NSA opened a regional headquarters on the base at Augusta's Fort Gordon. The year after, the U.S. Army decided to move Cyber Command from Maryland to Fort Gordon, and then defense contractors like Macaulay Brown, Booz Hamilton opened up local offices, and the state announced plans to build a $50 million facility in downtown Augusta called the Georgia Cyber Innovation and Training Center. Not only is the Masters digitally savvy, thanks largely to IBM, but technology leaders like StubHub and the events at the Masters being held, also the world's golf cart manufacturing center, churns out connected carts through Textron and others. Maybe we should start referring to the Masters as a tech tradition like no other. And how about while we're there? Well, 250,000 people expected to be at the Masters, even though I know there are rain issues. The 2015 badge sales, $35 million, although the Augusta Committee's not going to admit it because they don't even talk about that issue publicly. Economic impact between $110 and $125 million. And also, let's also understand that the 80th anniversary last year drew nearly 250,000 people, which is over 1,000 to 3,000% more than the next event in Augusta and Richland County. Also, by the way, a 620% increase in telecast hours for the Masters, from 2.5 hours in 56 to 18 hours last year. But, by the way, there's a bargain. It only costs $250 to produce a coat, though it holds more prestige and honor than anybody in any sport. And let's just remember also Augusta National uses its promotional platform as the only major not to rotate on a yearly basis. Yes, the tradition continues like no other. Tiger Woods coming up on his 20th anniversary of his win, when he won, by the way, that year. The average total purse, $1.5 million. Today on the tour, $7 million, a 352% increase. There were 7 golfers at the $7 million mark, 10 golfers at the $8 million mark in career earnings then. Today, 218 golfers. Thank you, Tiger. The only problem with Tiger is you're not playing. So, obviously, people focusing on everything else besides Tiger Woods at the Masters. And here's my prediction. They'll be okay. That's this week in deal-making, endorsements, marketing, law. Now it's a real honor to have you all deal again with Tom Grilk. He's the CEO of the Boston Athletic Association, and he's been that years since he started that office. He became executive director in 2011 and CEO in 2016. He was a corporate and business lawyer from Hale & Dorr and served as counsel to the Michigan and Boston area companies in technology for a number of years. He graduated Cornell University, by the way, the same place as Gary Bettman and Rob Manfred did, and received a J.D. from the University of Michigan. So he obviously is a good corporate lawyer. But he's talking to us about Boston Strong, talking about the major event, talking about what it means to put on an event like this, including support from the Red Sox, the Patriots, and others. Tom Grilk.
Rick Horrow, Sloan MIT Analytic Conference. We've talked about that before. A lot of this is analytics, but a lot of it is sports, and of course they merge, and they merge in a lot of different contexts. We talk about stick and ball sports, but you can't think Boston, how about this for being trite, without thinking the Boston Marathon. But more important than that, you really can't think of sports and Boston Strong and all of the positives related to the Boston Marathon without thinking it. The CEO of the Boston Athletic Association and the Boston Marathon, Tom Grilk. Did I get it all right?
You get it all
Wow.
exactly right,
That's
as
great.
always.
Shameless plug, as always, thank you. Shameless plug, April 17, 2017, The running of the Boston Marathon, what year is this?
Number 121.
121, and you were making a comment just off the air that right down the hall you'll be giving out runners' numbers and identification a few weeks from now.
We will. The Boston Marathon Runners Expo takes place here, so a great large trade show where people can get things, but principally it's the place where all 30,000 runners come and pick up their numbers.
Tell us about the business, Tom. Obviously business show, business interest, business audience. So kind of give us a perspective of, I know John Hancock, I mean the whole idea of the major sponsors involved in this, but it's not just philanthropy, it is a big, solid business. So talk about the marathon first, then we'll talk about the BAA.
Well, the marathon is the world's oldest continuously run annual marathon, so it goes back to 1897, and it's grown from 18 people to now 30,000. And it depends not only on the runners who train so hard and come and run so hard, but also in order to provide us with the resources necessary to meet their needs, there need to be sponsors. In our case, we have sponsor relationships that are the envy of our industry and every other. John Hancock will be in their 32nd year this year. It's 30 years for Adidas. At that point, they're not sponsorships. They ripen into partnerships.
And they're effectively equity partnerships because these are your stable partners financially, but also relationship-wise going forward.
It's a fair analogy to make. There's not much that we do without consulting carefully with them, and vice versa in anything that they do pertaining to the marathon.
The marathon hasn't always been as positive as it is. I know there were years ago when it went on, let's say, harder times. The resurrection story to where it is today, tell that.
Well, the Boston Athletic Association was a thriving athletic enterprise in Boston with multiple facilities here in Boston and outside for shooting, for golf, for equestrian, for rowing, for many things. And with the advent of the Depression in the 1930s, that was all lost. And all that was left was the Boston Marathon and an indoor track meet that ended in 1969. So the Boston Marathon was done on a shoestring by really a couple of people. Will Cloney and Jock Semple and the BAA Board of Governors were about it. With the desire to have the quality of the marathon be what everyone wanted it to be, in 1986 the BAA went to John Hancock as a sponsor, the first sponsor, under the aegis of David D'Alessandro, whose wisdom in all this was legendary. And with that began not only an era of financial solvency and an ability to meet the needs of all of our runners and everyone else that we work with, but also a move into the professional era where elite runners came, significant prize money was paid, and the Boston Marathon stepped to another level.
So the metrics of all of this from your business perspective, give us a snapshot of how intertwined the BAA is now with the marathon. I know that it's a staple event, but the BAA is a year-round organization. There's a lot of different events that go on as well.
That's right. The mission of the Boston Athletic Association really hasn't changed since it was founded in 1887, which is the promotion of health and fitness. We do it in three areas. One is the conduct of running events that everyone knows about, the Boston Marathon, plus our 5K, 10K, half marathon, other events that we conduct. The second part is community service, to be of service to all of the constituencies that provide such magnificent support to us in good times and in the most horrible times. And that's been a lot of kids events of many kinds, and now ripening into something in which we work in what might be called underserved neighborhoods to get not only kids out moving in furtherance of the health and fitness mission, but also their families. So moms, dads, kids out there at, for example, a run over at the Dimmock Health Center, the largest health center in Boston, to get more people out moving. The third part is the development of elite high-performance athletes, which is where the BAA began, sending most of the first U.S. team to the revival of the Olympic Games in 1896. And we now have a stable of excellent athletes that we are helping to develop. So all of that goes on all year.
Let's talk about the elite piece, which in many ways is the face of the television piece, the sports piece as it goes forward. Last year at the same time, we were ready for an exciting Olympics in Rio. Now we're a year later. Can you assess the impact of the Olympic marathon on what you do long term? Not even the results, but what happens in a non-Olympic year, 3 out of every 4, and is there a different level of preparation, either higher for the Olympic year or lower for the others?
The level of preparation is the same. It is intense, and it is meant to be as respectful as it should be for the wants and desires of the people who come and run.
Right.
What's different in an Olympic year is that the Boston Marathon, generally being 3 or 4 months before the Olympic Games, we don't have runners who will run in the Olympics. There's not time for them to recover. So it provides an opportunity for some other runners who are not going to be in the Games to come and have a showcase all their own on the world stage.
So net, the elite running movement is enhanced every 4 years. Is there and a lot of the golf answers are the same today because it's affecting the schedule entirely. Yours has been a lot more stable for a number of years. But do you welcome the quadriennial? Do you say now we're back to normal after the next last one, or what's?
It doesn't have enough of an impact on us for us really to prefer one over the other. In a non-Olympic year, it's nice to perhaps have somebody have a chance to win who wouldn't otherwise. But at the same time, there are so many magnificent high-performance runners around the world that many of them don't get into the Olympics because it's only 3 per country.
Right. Give us an idea of, everybody talks about public-private partnerships. City of Boston, State of Massachusetts, what is their level of participation in the marathon?
The level of participation is very high. We work certainly with the City of Boston to a very high degree. The mayor these days, Mayor Marty Walsh, is a big supporter of the race, out here all the time. The police commissioner has just run his 50th marathon, and he's run a whole bunch of Bostons. The fire commissioner just came back from, or not too long ago, from running the Chicago marathon. He'll be running New York this coming year. So we've got people in high places in public safety who are runners. But the public safety community here in Boston has always been a strong supporter with us, and that's true at the state level and at the other 7 cities and towns through which the race runs. There's a very high degree of coordination conducted at the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency in a bunker in Framingham, Massachusetts along the way. And the planning looks like something out of a military strategy movie. And there come together public safety officials from all the cities and towns, from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and multiple federal agencies, all of whom pitch in to make sure that the race is both safe and fun, respectful of the tradition of so many years that it's a family day when people can come out and enjoy themselves.
The inevitable public safety, obviously the segue to Boston Strong. Second year, third year since
this will be the 4th.
The 4th year, which is an incredibly bad question to ask, but it does set the tone because it feels like we're on to, without disrespecting the memory, back to normal if there is such a thing. The whole Boston Strong, you've had years to now analyze. The interesting thing is the Mark Wahlberg Patriots Day, and it's reminded people as well. How do you approach the memory of that day on a yearly basis?
What the memory of that day gave us, both that day and the next week and the next month and the next year, was a very strong reminder of what has always been true, that people around here will live their lives the way they choose, no matter what anybody does to try to stop them. It goes back to 1776, and what we saw that day and thereafter continues. If anything, I think there's now a stronger sense among people that this is their race. I once did a TED Talk, and both the title and the recurring theme were, in Boston, everyone owns the marathon. And I think David Ortiz was right when he got up and said, this is our freaking city.
Right, yeah, absolutely, and people really feel good about it, I guess, as far as taking ownership of the event. As it relates to doing your business and being philanthropic and raising dollars, has it given you more of a
certainly more of an intensity. Has it made the dollar commitment easier, harder? People now own the race even more than ever before, but they want to make sure that it sustains today and in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are able to enjoy good relations with our partners like John Hancock and Adidas and the many other sponsors with whom we work in order to keep things going at what we hope is the right level for everybody. On the charity side, since the number of charity slots is limited because most of the field goes to people who have qualified, well over 80%, what we have seen is that as people want to feel more and more part of Boston, they want to run. And if they can't run as a qualified runner, they want to run for a charity. And in some ways, that's harder than being a qualified runner, because now, if you want to run for a charity, you have to commit to raise at least $5,000. The average amount raised per charity entry last year exceeded $10,000. So if someone is going to be a charity runner, they have to go out and hit up everybody they ever knew for money to meet that goal, such that their friends, when they see them coming, grab for their wallets and run for the exit. The commitment of these charity runners is spectacular.
Spectacular, and I'm sure they approach it like everything else in Boston with the intensity and aplomb and commitment that makes this race very successful as well.
We see it from everybody involved in every way, from 30,000 runners to most of 10,000 volunteers to all of the public safety officials, and what is most noticeable to the runners, the hundreds of thousands of spectators who come out to cheer for and take care of their runners on their course, including out this window right behind us where the finish line is.
Interesting that it's right there, and of course your logo and the Adidas office and the Adidas store is right there, which is kind of interesting. The other piece of this is you personally. You know, it is. You can really tell your intensity and single-mindedness about this. What is it like to manage an event and a legacy like this? There is a tremendous responsibility. It's almost as if you are the owner of a public trust in a community. So don't screw it up.
We at the Boston Athletic Association, and I personally, feel precisely that way. But it is, for me, the privilege of a lifetime to have the opportunity to do this. When President Obama was here a few days after the bombing and our then Governor Patrick brought him over to say something, that was, I think, the first thing I said, that it is the privilege of a lifetime to do this, to be in the middle of a group of people who live here, who behave the way they do in the face of threat and crisis.
This community embraces its sports teams, but it also embraces the marathon. The idea of, now as a Dolphin fan, it's kind of hard for me to do this, but the idea that the Patriots are way above anybody else in the NFL, and the Red Sox run, and of course the Bruins and the Celtics, if they don't play well, everybody knows about it. But it seems like there is a metamorphosis that you all are all in the same boat, that everybody feels like these are our civic assets we need to protect.
That is surely true. Boston, as a population matter, is a lot smaller than some of the other big cities that have sports teams, that have big events like the Boston Marathon. So it brings a little more closely knit quality to the community. And so it's sort of easier for people to come together. They surely show up in times when it's fun. Once again, out on this street right behind us where the marathon will finish this year and every year, we also have become accustomed to duck boats going down there for the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Bruins, the Patriots.
Bring on another set of duck boats. Are you running in the marathon?
I am not running in the marathon. The last time I ran the marathon was 1978. And the year after that, I somewhat accidentally became the finish line announcer, which was much easier than running. But I was a just barely made it qualifier. In those days, you had to run 2 hours and 50 minutes to qualify for the marathon, and I ran 2:49:03, so I made it by an eyelash. I wasn't good.
I think that if you wanted to, there is something probably equivalent to a sponsor's exemption that could allow you to run it if you wanted to right now.
I think if I did, I would be unable to face all of the other people who would like to run and don't know somebody.
Clearly. And I would make the judgment that this man is much more important where he is than running, even though I'm sure he would do very well anyway. Tom, thank you very much.
Delighted for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Tom Britt. Thanks to all who made this show possible. Thanks to Jason Levine and Tanner Simpkins for putting it together. Big week. NHL playoffs beginning again next week. Recap of the Masters. Beginning of the Red Sox home season in earnest. And get ready for the Patriots and get ready for the draft. Many, many issues next week. Deal-making, law, marketing, etc. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Audio Boom. And thanks all of you. And once again, join us when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.
Napa know-how.
Any car brave enough to withstand a decade's worth of multi-state family voyages is worth treating to some quality parts and Napa know-how. Coolant for the Death Valley trip, wiper blades for the Pacific Northwest, air fresheners for the Southwest chili cook-off. Yeah, with some quality parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep your road warrior running longer, stronger, for many more vacations to come. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.